Hi, I'm going to show you a short presentation about how to use the new integration services functionalities in 2012 SQL Server. And to be honest, I expect that you know how to work with integration services and have done that earlier, so this is just a simple introduction to one of the cool new features, the way that you deploy and manage your integration services and your packages. Earlier, a normal way was to connect to the integration services and import a package, or from Visual Studio you could in the Solution Explorer right click and create a deployment manifest, and then basically what you did, you deployed one package at a time. Of course there were functionalities where you could deploy multiple single packages, meaning that if you had 5 packages then that they could be deployed in one task, but basically you deployed one package at a time. Nowadays, what I want to show is how to deploy a project and deploy a complete project. And basically, where you start is you start in the SQL Server Management Studio, and what you can see is that we have a new item called Integration Services Catalogs. And earlier everything was stored in MSDB database, but now if I right click here, I can create a new catalog, and I need to answer some questions. Enable CLI integration, common language runtime integration, and we can't change that. Enable automatic execution of integration services stored, we accept that. We need a database for the catalog, it is SSISDB, and we don't change that. And then we need to protect the catalog with a password. So I enter my password, and it doesn't matter what it is, like this. That's it. Now I created a integration services catalog. You see the benefit of that. I said now, but it took some time, I'm sorry about that. If I look here, then the benefit is that I now have a place where I can put all my packages and where I can configure a lot of things. So let's try to do a sys package or two. I go over to data tools, as they call it now, and it's stupid. Why not just call it Visual Studio, because it is Visual Studios. But never mind, I create a file, a new project, and I choose an integration service project. I click here, and then I rename it first project. I could also call it ERP transfer. Who cares? Just give it a name, click OK. Now I have an empty project. The first thing that you see is that you have something called project parameters. I'll get back to that a little bit later, because now first I have my package. I rename it as package 1. And I can do something, it doesn't matter, I can execute a SQL task. Click. You see I have a connection. I click new connection. Doesn't matter, normally I will use the connection managers up here, but now I simply just create a simple package. Localhost, just use a database, doesn't matter. Okay, sorry, let's go in here. I just click select 0. Doesn't care if it does anything or not. I right click and I click execute. And now I can see the package is running. This is also a thing that I don't like. Earlier, in the earlier version, it was so nice that you could see red, green, or yellow. Now you need to look at these small signs, but I think we get used to it. I take this package. First of all, I close the window. Yeah. Like this. And I'll take this package. Right click, and I rename it as package 2. And suddenly now I have 2 packages. At some point there is, close it, and now I want to deploy them. Earlier it could be a little bit difficult, especially if you made a lot of changes, but what I do now is I right click, I simply click deploy. Wow, that's easy. And you've even got a wizard. Click next, enter the destination server name, I click switch, let's try to see, and I browse for a path. And you can see I have my SysDB, and now I create a folder called something. This is the something. It's a little bit similar to what you knew earlier when you saw in the MSDB database, but the difference is that now I can deploy a complete solution. Click next, I click deploy, progress, passed and passed. That's it, close. I go over to Visual Studio, I right click, refresh, and here I have a folder called something, and you can see the projects I have in here. I have one called ERP transfer, I have my packages, and they are here. It's simply just brilliant, it's really good. If I right click, I click properties, then I see the first, sorry, let me try to do it up here instead. Here, it's the version button. Sorry, I got a little bit stuck. I need to drink a cup of coffee. Here I can see a version number called 1. So what I do now is that I can go over here. I can try to go in. Let's do this 2 times. At least now I've changed the package. And let's try to deploy again. Look how easy it is. Yes, yes, deploy. That's it. Close. Let's go and see what happens. Right click, versions. Now you can see that I have a new version, so I can go down here and I can restore to selected version. This is simply brilliant. This is brilliant. So this is how I can say that the new project deployment solution is working. See, now what we have here is we have something called environment, and now I can create an environment called test. I can create a new one called production. I can go in here and I can try to click properties. Let me see. Yes. And I have something called variables. And if I take a variable, then I can call it useful. It could be connection string or whatever. I decide it should be a string. Could be connection string. Value ABC. It doesn't really matter. That's it. I copy the name. Okay. Go to production, properties, I create the same one again, string, could be connection, string, give it another value, value 2 for example, that's it. See, now the benefit is that if I go back to my solution, I right click, I double click and right click and then properties. Sorry, I need to, I'm a little bit of an idiot. I double click, of course, there it is, sorry. And I click add parameter, and then I have a parameter called useful, or whatever I want to call it. It's a string, sensitive, required, something, value 3 for example, that's it. This parameter can now be used in the package if I want to, but when I deploy now, that's the interesting part. See how easy it is again to deploy, it's really good. Then when I go over here, I can try to look at it, I can see what do we have what do we have under properties. I click configure, sorry. And here you can see I have a parameter and I have a connection manager, but what I can do now is, for example, I can try to click and see what I have, and instead of this I could try to edit if I want to, or I could try to click a reference. I could add a reference and say I want a test environment. I go back to the parameters, click here, click plus. Now suddenly I can use an environmental variable. Useful. That means that now when these packages are executed, then they will use the settings from the test environment. And when I want to change that, I simply click configure, reference, add, production, here, useful. And as you can see now, then I have added both environments, and when I execute a package, then I can simply choose what environment to execute it in. It's brilliant again, simply brilliant. Okay, and now let's try to see what happens when you want to run a job. Go in here, new job, I want to schedule a sys package, go to steps, I add a new step, and I decide that it should run an integration service package. And earlier we had 3 possibilities here, but now we also have a sys catalog. I can choose a package, and now the cool thing again, configuration. It says an error because I need to click environment, and then it says running in the production environment. So now I can actually both have a job that runs production and runs in test environment. It's on a scale from 1 to 10, then this is simply fantastic. I'd say that. So another thing is that when I execute a package, let's try to execute it, this, then I get the possibility to open overview report now. I click yes. It takes a little time. And then I have a lot of information about how the package was run. A lot of places in a SQL server, not a lot of people know that then you can right click some places and choose report and standard reports, and then you have a lot of different reports. Now what you have here is an example integration services dashboard. I click here. And what you can see is that I now have some information, and I can choose between other reports also. So basically this new feature is absolutely brilliant. It makes life much easier for a ETL developer or a SQL guy. So brilliant.